This is the Capitol Rundown.
Any attempt by the federal government to take over Michigan elections should be seen for what it is.
I hope that ICE is abolished. I hope that our communities start focusing on the community needs.
So, I mean, we're doing the best we can, but it is all volunteers.
It's all straight ahead. The Capitol Rundown starts now.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Jorma Duran. From Lansing to Washington, D.C., there's always a lot happening in Michigan politics, so let's get started. We begin in D.C. and the federal government reopening after President Donald Trump signed a major spending package into law Tuesday night. The partial government shutdown lasted just 3 days, but the fight over funding for the Department of Homeland Security continues. Our Washington correspondent Trevor Shirley explains.
After a quick but fraught 3-day partial shutdown, the government is back open.
I'm thrilled to sign the Consolidated Appropriations Act to immediately reopen the federal government.
Earlier Tuesday, the House passed a bill that funds most of the government through September, with 21 Democrats joining nearly all Republicans.
And this is a big thing. It seems like a small thing, but it's a big thing.
But the bill only funds the Department of Homeland Security through the end of next week. Democrats are demanding changes on immigration enforcement.
Democrats won't rest until we enact real change in this lawless agency.
Among their demands, Democrats want roving ICE patrols to end, mandate body cameras, and unmask all agents, a tough sell for many Republicans.
There are a lot of things that I think were thoughtful suggestions that would have already been implemented. We are not going to impede the enforcement of federal immigration law.
Ahead of Tuesday's vote, some House Democrats also protested outside ICE headquarters, calling for Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to step down.
If Kristi Noem does not resign and the president doesn't fire her, Democrats are ready and willing to impeach her.
If lawmakers can't reach a funding deal on DHS by February 13th, that agency would shut down again. ICE essentially has enough money to keep operating as normal, but it's other agencies under DHS, like FEMA and the TSA, which would feel the impacts. Reporting in Washington, I'm Trevor Shirley.
Lawmakers representing Michigan on Capitol Hill were divided on that funding package, including our state's 2 Democratic senators, Elissa Slotkin and Gary Peters. Senator Peters says he voted for the package because it's a short-term deal that will fund key agencies like FEMA and the TSA. He stressed, though, that it isn't a blank check. Meanwhile, Senator Slotkin voted against the funding. In a social media post, the senator said, quote, "My sincere hope is the White House and my Republican colleagues in Congress hear the chorus from the American people and use the next 2 weeks to put the appropriate limits on ICE." In the House, Michigan's representatives voted along party lines, with all 7 Republicans voting to pass the funding package and all 6 Democrats voting no. And coming up on the Capitol Rundown, our Capitol correspondent will be here for you with a look behind the scenes in Lansing. But first, President Trump is talking about nationalizing elections in Michigan. That story and a whole lot more when we come back. Welcome back. Late last year, 3 state Senate Democrats introduced legislation to change the way ICE is allowed to operate in Michigan. And as more and more states face ICE raids in their cities, such laws will come into conflict with the federal government's plans. Ellie Myers has the story.
The relationship between state and federal law is somewhat complicated. As a general rule, federal law is supreme.
That's University of Michigan law professor Leah Littman, who explained on Tuesday that state laws can't conflict or impede federal law.
It's very limited what a state could do when it comes to federal jurisdictions.
That could make it difficult for these state laws to have much of an impact if they were passed by the legislature. But federal agents still have to obey state laws that apply to everyone.
Federal agents can't just waltz into some state and start breaking state laws.
Another sticking point, though, Littman tells me, is that states can't have laws that target a group or individual.
States can't single out federal officers and impose special burdens on them.
Although there's no federal law that says immigration officers have to wear masks during operations, it could be legally tricky for the Michigan law to focus on ICE agents specifically.
Are they passing laws that apply to everybody, or are they passing laws that apply to the feds? If it's the latter, they're going to have a lot of trouble.
Both professors tell me this issue of jurisdiction is a deeply complicated one.
The relationship between federal and state, it's never been more in the spotlight than it is right now. We used to be able to just say, stay in your own lane, and now there's just a blurring of that line. But it's going to erupt into a legal issue, for sure.
The United States Constitution delegates the job of running elections to the states, but on Tuesday, President Donald Trump said on a podcast that he wants the Republican Party to, quote, nationalize the voting. Then, in the Oval Office on Tuesday, the president referenced certain Democratic-run cities as places where elections are corrupt. This comes after his Department of Justice raided the election offices in Fulton County, Georgia. The president then continued his lie that he actually won the 2020 election and that places such as Fulton County were hotbeds of vote stealing.
By the way, we had them last time, but go to 2020 and look at the facts that are coming out. Rigged, crooked elections. If we have areas, take a look at Detroit, take a look at Pennsylvania, take a look at Philadelphia. You go take a look at Atlanta. Look at some of the places that horrible corruption on elections, and the federal government should not allow that.
As far as Detroit and Michigan's elections, Governor Gretchen Whitmer responded to the president. In a video posted on social media, the governor said America's system of decentralized voting made it the longest-running representative democracy in the world.
Let me be very clear. Elections will continue to be run at the state level in Michigan. Any attempt by the federal government to take over Michigan elections should be seen for what it is, an attempt to take away your constitutional right to vote. Now, it's not going to happen on my watch.
Last week, Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson held a news conference to announce results of an investigation into claims that 15 people were non-citizens who allegedly registered to vote in Michigan. Of those, there were 3 people who voted. One is an American citizen who legally voted. Another voted in 2024 and is under investigation. The third voted happened in 2018, but their registration was canceled 4 years later. And the other 8 people are being reviewed to verify citizenship status. Well, later on the Capitol Rundown, parents want Congress to do something about social media accountability. And just ahead, one candidate's mission to reduce state property taxes is entering a new phase. That's coming up right after the break. Welcome back. A Republican candidate for governor wants voters to be able to decide if they should pay less in property taxes by putting the question on November's ballot. Here's our Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic with the latest.
To allow citizens to vote for property tax relief in the fall, sponsors of the statewide petition drive need over 400,000 valid petition signatures, and at this read, they're not sure they have them. This group, several years ago, tried and failed on the property tax cut front, but now a new batch of petitions were out there being circulated.
Say we have 100,000 petitions out in the field. This time we started out with a much bigger army, a more well-educated army, and we had more time to prepare to get materials in the hands of that army prior to our go date. So, I mean, we're doing the best we can, but it is all volunteers.
Ms. Wagner reports the gathering of names has now stopped, and now the job is to count them. But as she is counting, she is tossing out invalid names as she hopes to get to 600,000 valid signatures. Frankly, she's unsure what that final number will be. Whatever the number is, she predicts opponents like the teachers' unions will ask the courts to block it, and local governments that rely heavily on the property tax to fund public safety and other services will fight it too. Meanwhile, legislative Democrats argue citizens are willing to support millages for local services, and others claim there's no tax revolt.
In May, we turned down 30% of the millages in May and 50% of the bond proposals. In August, there was another 25% of the millages that were turned down.
So while she counts names in her back room, the House Speaker, Matt Hall, has made property tax relief a top legislative priority for the new year. But as Ms. Wagner argues, whatever he proposes is not likely to be as deep as her proposal if it gets to the ballot. Ms. Wagner reveals that if she does get enough signatures, she'll not announce it right away so as not to give the opponents more time to keep it off the ballot. Your view in Lansing, Tim Skubic.
In the race for Michigan's Secretary of State, one candidate picked up some major endorsements that once meant a lot but may not this election. The Rundown's Kirk Montgomery talked to Tim about that and more.
It's time to get updated on Michigan politics, and there is nobody better than our own Tim Skubic. Tim, Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist is picking up some endorsements, some important endorsements in his race for Secretary of State. So the question is, who are they? And do those really carry the same weight that they used to?
Yeah, two good questions, Kurt. Nice to be with you. The lieutenant governor is showing that he does have some political chops. As he ran for governor unsuccessfully, he was really unable to pick up any major endorsements in the Democratic Party, despite being lieutenant governor for 8 years with Governor Whitmer. Now, as a candidate for Secretary of State, they're lining up and they're saying, this is our guy. And this week saying that, we now have three major unions in Michigan that are behind Mr. Gilchrist for SOS. The Michigan Education Association, the UAW, and the big enchilada this week was the AFL-CIO. There are others in this race who have said basically, you know what? The days of union bosses coming into conventions and dictating to the delegates who they want for a job, this person, who happens to be somebody who is running for Secretary of State, Susanna, she basically told us the other day, those days are gone. She's got a shot at this, and Barb Byram thinks she's got a shot at it too.
Let's talk about this too. This was fascinating to me. A group of former Michigan governors from both parties got together to talk about civility in politics, something that we do not see as often as we used to. You talk to them. What do they have to say?
Well, you can imagine that these the four Michigan governors were all on the same page, singing from the same choir book, which basically is the civility in our politics right now is not very good. We had John Engler in town, Governor Blanchard in town. We had Governor Granholm on Zoom, and then we had Governor Rick Snyder. And Governor Engler, when we spoke to him, I said, what's the status right now? He says, it's pretty bad. And everybody agreed that it is awful, and everybody agrees that the only way to do this, to turn this thing around, if it is turnaroundable, if that's a word, is for the good people to get involved in politics and to basically call out all of this alleged wrongdoing and this rhetoric, which is really, really harsh. And as one of them explained to me, you know, negative ads do work. But as Governor Snyder said, you know what? If people didn't watch them and they didn't look at them and they didn't believe in them, they would not have any impact. So these governors came in, they preached the message. They were preaching to the choir because everybody in the audience was going, amen. We've got to change the system. The question is, can we do it? How long will it take? And is it doable at all?
Ahead on the rundown, we'll take you to a vigil held by nurses on the state capitol steps. And when we come back, parents are demanding lawmakers do something about social media accountability. The latest on that when we return. Actor Joseph Gordon-Levitt joined parents on Capitol Hill to demand reforms to social media. Our DC's Raquel Martin has the story.
The last search on Carson's phone before he ended his life was for hacks to find out who was doing this to him.
Kristen Bride calls it the darkest day of her life. In 2020, her 16-year-old son, Carson, died by suicide. The cause, she says, cyberbullying on YOLO, an app later purchased by Snapchat.
The second darkest day was meeting with a local attorney. The attorney told me that I had no legal recourse because social media companies are immune from lawsuits.
Bride, who first shared her story on Capitol Hill in 2023, returned Wednesday, joining other parents of victims and actor Joseph Gordon-Levitt, all demanding justice.
There should be nobody voting to give any more impunity to these tech companies.
They say Congress must eliminate a federal law known as Section 230, which ensures social media companies cannot be sued for content posted on their platforms. Social media companies have long fought the effort, arguing it'll open the floodgates for costly lawsuits and ultimately suppress free speech. Democratic Senator Dick Durbin is demanding more public hearings to ramp up pressure on undecided lawmakers.
They can stand up and decide whose side they're going to be on.
The bill, which would end Section 230 in 2 years, has bipartisan support.
Every parent I talk to is scared to death of what their kids are encountering online.
Durbin says he wants the bill passed and on the president's desk this year. In Washington, Raquel Martin.
Still to come, nurses gathered for a vigil at the state capitol. That story when the Capitol Rundown returns. Welcome back. In response to ICE agents killing 2 people in Minneapolis, including VA nurse Alex Preddy, nurses here in Michigan held a vigil at the state capitol on Wednesday. The Rundown's Zach Priest was there and has the story.
Abolish ICE! Abolish ICE!
I'm very angry. I'm ready for changes to be made. ICE has been killing innocent people.
Jamie Brown says she had to be there, adding that nurses stick together, which is why Preddy's death hit especially close to home.
Being at the bedside, taking care of my patients, knowing that my fellow nurses are out there being shot by ICE, it took an emotional toll on me.
Others there agree, like Aaron McCormick, the president of the Michigan Nurses Association. He says it's important to celebrate Preddy's life and was heartbroken by his death.
It was heartbreaking because, you know, the first thing I seen was a video that showed someone trying to help someone who was on the ground and was slaughtered, in my opinion.
McCormick says Preddy's death is especially devastating, adding that in his eyes, Preddy was simply trying to help someone.
Or my goal is to help people. What this is showing that even when you help people, you can be hurt. And that's unacceptable.
I hope that ICE is abolished. I hope that our communities start focusing on the community needs and not just an individual need. And I hope this brings us all closer together as a nation.
And that's our show for this week. Thanks for watching the Capitol Rundown.